Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great Friday. It's been a really tough week for us. So the week is finally over. The markets were down today. We're going to take a look at what's going on there, but it's just like, where do I begin and where do we end with all this? So the markets were down today. S&P down, NASDAQ were both down. Bitcoin, Ethereum were down also, but they did rebound a little bit towards the end of the day. That was partially good. Okay, so miners were down as well. For the most part, there were a couple that were up. And then we got a couple stories to talk about. We got Silicon Valley Bank basically going under. The FDIC has taken over with that one. We're going to cover that a little bit. We got Hut 8 news also. We have some good news from them, and we also have some bad news regarding the merger news. So we'll get into all that. And then we also have the jobs report, which we're going to get into first after we go over the miners and stock market, see what's going on there. So as always, there's going to be chapters down below. You guys can skip to the parts that interest you, and we're going to call it a day. Tomorrow, we are going to have the miners reviewed on 7 and 5 metrics that for the month of February. So that'll be kind of interesting to go over that as well. So as always, not financial advice for entertainment only. Do your own research. I'm invested in following coins and companies for full disclosure. And let's take a look at what's going on in the markets here right now. Okay, so S&P was down today 1.45%. Dow Jones was down 1.07%. And the NASDAQ was down 1.38%. Bitcoin was down a little bit more than where it ended up at, which was good. It kind of bounced a little bit towards the end of the day here, but it was down almost like 4% on the day. It did finish up being only down 0.67% on the day. So that was good. And it closed at 20,230. So that's good there. If we look at the CME futures bar here, we kind of closed right at that very top part of this wick that we had here on this candle. We did fill, obviously, the gap here. We filled that yesterday. I've talked about this in the past that, usually this gets filled. And so, lo and behold, it did get filled, unfortunately, based on some bad news. So that's done and over with. Hopefully, we can rebound from here. And we'll see if that is even possible here. Bitcoin right now is, like I said, at 20,455. It is bouncing up a little bit here in the new day, which is good on the daily chart. We can see that the RSI bottomed out here at about 27 on the daily chart. Last time we were this low was back here. At that point, we were much lower in price. We're at 15,900 roughly. So we are higher in price. RSI has come down to the same level. That to me is a good sign. This could be our lower bottom or higher bottom that we were looking for. And hopefully from here, we can continue going up, but it's going to be a bumpy ride, I think, going forward. We had a lot of stuff that are against us right now. Once we get past through some of this FUD, I think we will continue going up, but it might be at least another 5-6 months before all this stuff gets cleared out and we're able to, get to possibly higher highs here going forward. I'm thinking possibly towards the end of the first half of this year, going into the second half, things will start changing around for us. But we'll see. Okay, now on the 1 hour chart, we can see here that the RSI is climbing up again here. We did bottom out on the RSI. Pretty low here. The bad part was the price didn't stop going down. It kept going down while the RSI kept going up. So now, right now, I'm just looking to see if I can find any kind of a reversal in this pattern where RSI is possibly going a little bit flat, price is going up, something like that. We don't see that right now. And we can see that, price last time we were at this RSI level at 55, it was much higher. So we're just waiting for that reversal to happen here as well. On the 4 hour chart, same thing. RSI bottomed out here pretty nicely here, right at the bottom pretty much here. When it bottomed out at 19,750 roughly. RSI at that point was like at 9, 10, somewhere around there. So pretty low. Hasn't been this low for quite a while. Even, let's see here, when was the last time it was this low? We had to go back quite a ways. Back to over here. When Bitcoin at that time was at the 15,000 mark. So I think this is a good sign as well. Okay. Ethereum was down also today. Let's take a look at that one really quick while we're at it. Ethereum finished out the day today. It was down only 0.37%. So not too bad. It closed at 1,432. It did bounce through later in the day, which was good. Like Bitcoin did the same thing. So that's fine there. We'll see how this goes forward. And let's take a look at the miners here really quick. So ANY was down 9.91% to 28 cents. Argo was actually flat on the day at $1.35. Bit Digital was down 6.54% to $1. Bitfarms was down 0.43% to 71 cents. Cypher was down 7.04% to $1.32. CleanSpark was down 2.58% to $2.08. Cores was down 6.15% to 24 cents. DigiHost was up 0.88% to $1.14. DMG was down 2.54% to $1.18. Greenidge was down 5.13% to 38 cents. Hive was down 1.26% to $2.35. Hut 8 was down 0.79% to $1.26. Iris Energy was up 7.53% to $2.57. Marathon was down 3.27% to $5.33. Mawson was down 0.82% to $2.42. Riot was down 4.16% to $5.30. Suna was up 1.38% to 33 cents. And TeraWulf was down 5.89% to 58 cents. So it's going to be a pretty bad week for the miners, including Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's going to be down around 9%, 9-10% for the week, if not a little bit higher. Some of these miners are going to be down close to maybe 15-20% on the week. We'll see that. We'll take a look at that possibly tomorrow or on Sunday. Okay, let's take a look at the network hash rate really quick. And we can see here that the network hash rate has come down a little bit here to 320 million on the 7-day average. And if we look at the 1-day average, it has come up a little bit here to 291 million right now. Now, with Bitcoin price being around the 20,000 mark, I wouldn't be surprised if the network hash rate kind of falls a little bit here and kind of steadies a little bit instead of continuing to go up. But we'll see how that's going to play out as well. Okay, so that's it. Let's take a look at our first story here, which is going to be on the jobs report really quick, and then we'll get into the other stuff. So jobs report, U.S. economy adds 311,000 jobs in February as labor market stays strong. But there are some good signs here, possibly where the Fed could take a look at it and not go with the 50 basis points, but go with the 25 basis points, which might be good. So the U.S. economy added 311,000 jobs last month, more than expected, while the unemployment rate ticked higher to 3.6 on a rise in labor force participation. Economists had expected to see 225,000 new jobs added to the economy last month, with the unemployment rate holding steady at 3.4, according to data from Bloomberg. So with the rise in unemployment, so that's a good sign there. We also have data comparing to last month's here. So non-farmer payrolls went up 311,000 versus 504,000. So that is a decrease here, so that's good. And then unemployment rate is up to 3.6 versus 3.4, so that's also good. And then average hourly earnings month to month was up 0.2% versus 0.3. That's good, so that's a decrease as well. And then average hourly earnings year on year went up 4.6 versus 4.4, so that's not too bad there. And then labor force participation rate of 62.5% versus 62.4%. That's still not too bad. And then average weekly hours worked was down a little bit, 34.5 versus 34.6. So that's looking pretty good. So this might give a little bit for the Fed to go, okay, we don't need to go 50 basis points, we could go 25 basis points. Plus with the news that we have next on Silicon Valley, I think that's going to also play into the decision that the Fed's going to make here coming up with their rate hikes. Okay, so this wasn't too bad. This is kind of trending in the right direction, which I believe is what the Fed wants. And we'll see. We'll have to wait and see how this can play out. Okay, so next is Silicon Valley collapse. Here's how the second biggest bank collapse in U.S. history happened in just 48 hours. And this is just crazy how this happened. So we'll take a look at it here really quick. And it's definitely not good. Is there a contagion to this? I don't know. We'll find out. But I think this is a contagion from the Silvergate Bank that happened, well, earlier this week, late last week. And how that played out, I think a lot of people were running on the bank on Silicon Valley. But we'll take a look at it here. So on Wednesday, Silicon Valley Bank was a well-capitalized institution seeking to raise some funds. Within 48 hours, a panic induced by the very venture capital community that SVB had served and nurtured ended the bank's 40-year run. So they were in business for 40 years without any prior problems. And then for whatever reason, we got a bank run on them. And, well, now they're owned by, well, not owned, but they're being taken care of by the FDIC. So regulators shuttered SVB Friday and seized its deposits in the largest U.S. banking failure since the 2008 financial crisis. And the second largest ever. The company's downward spiral began late Wednesday when it surprised investors with news that it needed to raise $2.25 billion to shore up its balance sheet. And what that was for their short-term needs that they needed. They had plenty of capital and longer-term assets. So what followed was the rapid collapse of a highly respected bank that had grown alongside its technology clients in Silicon Valley, obviously. And this was a hysteria-induced bank run caused by VCs. Ryan Falvey, a fintech investor at Restif Ventures, told CNBC, this is going to go down as one of the ultimate cases of an industry cutting its nose off to spite its face. Okay, so if everybody didn't panic, the bank might have survived and they would have been able to possibly get through this. But as the run on the bank happened, one person tells another person tells another person, and then you get all these people going in and just trying to withdraw their funds. And that's how you get a bank run. So the episode is the latest fallout from the Federal Reserve's actions to stem inflation with its most aggressive rate hiking campaign in 4 decades. The ramifications could be far-reaching, with concerns that startups may be unable to pay employees in the coming days. Venture investors may struggle to raise funds, and an already battered sector could face deeper melees. So those are all bad things here. especially with FDIC now taking over. I believe they said on Monday, people that have secured deposits up to 250,000 will get access to those. Anything above that is unsecured. It's going to take a little time possibly. Okay, so the roots of the SVB's collapse stem from dislocation spurred by higher interest rates. As startup clients withdrew deposits to keep their companies afloat in a chilly environment for IPOs and private fundraising, SVB found itself short on capital. It had been forced to sell all of its available for sale bonds at 1.8 billion loss. That's a big loss, the bank said late Wednesday. So the sudden need for fresh capital coming on the heels of the collapse of the crypto-focused Silvergate Bank sparked another wave of deposit withdrawals Thursday as VCs instructed their portfolio companies to move funds according to people with knowledge of the matter. The concern, a bank run at SVB, could pose an existential threat to startups who couldn't tap their deposits. So as you are aware, there's a lot of startups in Silicon Valley, whether it's early rounds, later rounds in their process. They could have a couple $1 million to, $50 million to $100 million in these banks. And I think SVB had like 50% of the startup market in that area. So they had 50% of the startups basically in that area had deposits with them. The death blow. So all told, customers withdrew a staggering $42 billion of deposits by the end of Thursday, according to California regulatory filing. By the close of business that day, SVB had a negative cash balance of $958 million, according to the filing, and failed to scrounge enough collateral from other sources, the regulators said. So that is what ultimately did them in. But if we look at their financial numbers here, just from the end of the quarter, ended in December 31st, you can see that they had total assets. These are in all numbers in thousands. So add another, 3 zeros to this. They had $211 billion in total assets. Cash and cash equivalents was $13.8 billion. Cash, money market was $722 million. They had federal home loan bank stock of $720 million. Securities and investments of $120 billion. Available for sale securities was $2.6 billion. Held for maturity securities, this is the one part that I think they had the problem with, was $91 billion. Those had to be held on for a longer term. And then other short-term investments was $26 billion. So they had plenty of cash to go around if they didn't get a bank run on them. Okay. This is obviously unfortunate, but it's going to bleed into other issues as well. There are a couple of things to note. The FDIC said that, depositors will have access to their cash, to $250,000 on Monday. The rest that is beyond that is unsecured. So that's going to take a while for the FDIC to sell off the assets, all the securities that they do own, some of the federal home loan bank stocks, and other things that they have in here, along with held to maturity securities of $91 billion. That's going to take a while to sell all of that stuff off. The only thing that could possibly save them is if another reputable bank, somebody that's larger than them, basically buys out their assets. And they're talking about this possibly could happen over the weekend. If it does happen over the weekend, this would be a saving grace for all of those depositors there in that community where they're operating in. Otherwise, if that doesn't happen, if we don't get somebody saving them over the weekend, what will happen is the startups that do have deposits with them will have access to $250,000 on Monday, and that's not going to last them very long, especially if they have a large employee base. You got to pay payroll, you got to pay other things, you got to pay vendors, things like that. It's not going to last very long. So there is going to be a lot of pain in that market. You also have a lot of VCs that were trying to save some of the startups because of the past year that we were in, where it was very difficult to get funding. IPOs pretty much went flat because, the money just dried up. Based on the economy that we were in with high inflation and everything else. So there could be some contagion happening over into possible other banks. The FDIC said that they are also monitoring some other banks as well. So we'll see where this is all going to end. But right now, it's not looking too good. As far as how it's going to impact the crypto, Bitcoin and all that, I have no idea. Right now, it's too hard to tell where this is all going to end up at. But it is going to obviously take some capital out of the markets, I think. People that had crypto will possibly sell some of their stakes in order to be able to continue going forward. So we'll see how that affects it. But that's the only thing I can think of right now. Okay. Let me know if you guys have any other data on this or any other interesting news on it. We'd love to hear it. Okay. So that's it for Silicon Valley Bank. Let's take a look at Hut 8 here really quick as well. So Hut 8 has some good news on the US-BTC merger, and there's some bad news with it as well. First, we'll get into the good news here, which is Hut 8 provides update on business combination with US-BTC. So let me see here. Where was it? Okay, Hut 8 is pleased to announce that it has received a no action letter from the Competition Bureau of Canada in respect to the company's previous announced proposed business combination pursuant to which Hut 8 and US Data Mining Corp. Inc., doing business as US Bitcoin Corp., will combine an all-stock merger of equals. The no action letter confirms that the Competition Bureau does not, at this time, intend to challenge the transaction between the Competition Tribunal under the merger provisions under the Competition Act. So this is actually good news for them. This is one hurdle that they have now passed. They can keep going forward with it. And let's see here. This is from a quote. So as we continue to work towards closing the proposed transaction with USBTC, the issuance of this no action letter is a positive development as it satisfies the Competition Act approval condition in the business combination agreement. We appreciate the Competition Bureau's professionalism throughout its review process, said Jamie Leverton, CEO of Hut 8. And then completion of the transaction remains subject to the remaining regulatory approvals, shareholder approval, court approval, and other customary closing conditions of this transaction. Okay, this is great. This gets them one step closer. Now, there is some bad news here, which one of you guys in the comments was kind enough to provide the information on this yesterday. Can't remember who it was, so thank you for that. Here's what the news is that's kind of bad here. So, judge signs contempt order directing U.S. Bitcoin to cease operations in the Falls. In the Falls, and this is the Niagara Falls, where they have one of their facilities. And I tried looking up what their facility was here. They don't really say much on it as far as how many megawatts they have, what their exahash is, or what they're doing in there. They just have in here Niagara Falls. The facility is located in New York, independent system operator, Zone A, only a short distance from Niagara Falls. This is a ground-powered and ample renewable energy generation sources, ensuring that the USBTC has 90% zero emissions electricity at the facility. US Bitcoin Corp continues a long line of industrial tradition on the site, breathing economic life back into the former sodium plant that operated on this location from 1896 to 2015. So that plant obviously drew a lot of electricity. This was a good site to put in a crypto mining farm, or data centers at least, but there is very little information on here as far as exahash, megawatts, what's in store in this facility. What does it mean for them to be shut down possibly on this? Okay, so I tried to figure that out. If you guys know any information, let me know. Love to hear it. All right, so here's the details on what the judge said, and they've been battling this, I guess, for quite a while, since December. So this was on March 4th. A state Supreme Court justice has now signed a final order that directs U.S. Data Technologies Group Ltd. and U.S. Data Mining Group Inc., doing business as US Bitcoin, to shut down its cryptocurrency mining facility on Buffalo Avenue and pay the city of Niagara Falls punitive fines that currently exceed $1 million. That's a lot. And overall, I mean, this transaction is going to be huge anyways if they're doing equals. Not sure how much this is going to have an impact on it, but it is a negative, another negative that, we're seeing in this kind of agreement that they're gotten into with them to merge. That's what I'm trying to say here. The 1 million is not that bad. I mean, it's still a lot, but it's not that bad. The bad thing is, will that facility not be operational, and for how long? Can they get a license? Things like that. That's all going to be worked out. And what was the exahash in there? If it was 1 or 2 exahash, well, that's pretty big. So that's a lot of cryptocurrency that could be mined with that, obviously, each month. Okay, so continuing on here, Justice Edward Pace signed the order on Friday after weeks of contentious negotiations between attorneys for the Falls and the U.S. Bitcoin over the wording of the final order. The order will enforce a previous ruling by Pace that found U.S. Bitcoin in contempt of an order from another state Supreme Court justice that had directed the company to shut down its operations. So they were already in contempt of one order. Now they got to make sure that they don't get in contempt over another order. It's not good. Okay. That ruling by the state Supreme Court Justice Frank A. Sedita III directed U.S. Bitcoin to stop operating its Buffalo Avenue facility while lawyers for the Falls seek a preliminary injunction to force the cryptocurrency mining company to comply with a new zoning ordinance governing high energy use industries. Pace ruled on January 25th that U.S. Bitcoin was deliberately operating its cryptocurrency mining facility in violation of the order issued by Sedita and found the company in contempt. All right, that's not good. Pace also ruled that if U.S. Bitcoin continued to operate their facility, he would impose fines of $10,000 a day through February 1st, then increase the fines to $25,000 a day until the cryptocurrency mining stopped altogether, I guess. The justice imposed the fines dating back to December 9th, because that was the date when Sedita first issued the temporary restraining order that directed U.S. Bitcoin to stop operating while the suit seeking the preliminary injunction worked its way through the courts. So there you have it. It's unfortunate, and hopefully this isn't indicative of the way that U.S. Bitcoin operates its services in areas where they just neglect to or don't follow follow the law, basically. Kind of doesn't shed a great light on them, at least right now. And there's still a lot of stuff that we don't know on them. So with that being said, I'm not going to dive too deep more into this, but just wanted to point this out to you guys that this is starting to become a little worrisome. It's already been worrisome because we didn't have a lot of data on US Bitcoin to begin with when the merger was announced. They said it was a merger of equals, but there was no information provided as far as the financials, any debt that US Bitcoin has, any of that other information that would be really helpful to decide for investors. Okay, so this is just another thing that's kind of makes you think in the back of your mind, is this really a good idea for Hut 8 to get into? Okay, let me know what you guys think of this. I know a lot of people are still on the fence on this and not very pleased with the merger, so I just want to provide this information to you guys and let me know what you guys think. All right, so that is it for today. Hopefully next week will be better. We'll see how things work out. It all depends also with everything that's going on with some of the banks like Silicon Valley. We'll see where that leads things and if people are going to be pulling out their crypto, well, to kind of help pay for things in the time being, but we'll see. Okay, tomorrow or Sunday we'll do a video on Bitcoin versus the miners for the week. Like I said, it's gonna be a pretty bad week. And then we'll also do the operations report for overall for the month of February and see how all the miners stacked up against each other. It's actually surprising. I ran the data already and it's actually pretty interesting. So I think you guys will be surprised by who came in first for the 7 metrics and the 5 metrics. So there's 2 number 1 spots here. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, bye.